All right, we talked the big picture. Let's get into some of the
the government will get all assets in the world, currently equal about $900 trillion. Not 900.
Alright, guys. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to look up the video. I need to come up here. Try to set it all up here. Alright, guys. So let's talk about what's happening today. Okay, so let's get started in a minute here. I don't know what this is. Let's see. 1 second. Give me 1 second, please. Okay. I think Gamestop is the one. Won't stop. Okay, 1 second, you guys. I'm trying to find. This is the one. Yes. Let's go. Alright, so it's Saturday. Hold on 1 second, you guys. Give me 1 second. Alright. Let's go, you guys. Alright, definitely got my tea. Okay, so hopefully I'm not sniffling while I'm talking to you about this important things. What's in the box? So speculation, right? Obviously, that's what Roy Kitty is talking about. But I feel like, you know why? Here's what I see. Okay, you guys, come here. It's in the box. Tinfoil, I don't know. But this is the official GME, GameStop YouTube channel. So I don't know. Again, speculation, right? I don't know whether they're hinting, hey, something is happening. Take that with a grain of salt, you guys. Come on, we've been here long enough to know that this is just for good and fun. Not to try to entice people to, buy call, sell call, or whatever. Do whatever you want with your, with your money, with your investment. If you think that this is the investment of a lifetime, then of course, yes, have some. But so let me address something here that I saw on Moran's shows about Tetron Invest and selling calls and selling puts and all that stuff. Now, I know I might be on the chopping block next. Morans, if you're listening, be gentle. I know he has a very strong stand, on what he the way that he invests is suitable for him, for sure. And he has a stand. I respect that in a person. But at the same time, not everybody is as patient and as convicted, as he is, right? And also too has the type of income that he has to be able to do that, right? And so inevitably, for me, I don't make that much at my work, to be able to own a home, to be able to do all this thing. So that's why I'm seeking, extra income now, in option chain and all that stuff. So that's why I do option as well. But at the same time, I do understand why, the long-term investing aspect of it, because I've been in it before. Okay. I've been through, holding the asset for a long time. Had I hold everything that I bought, including Bitcoin, I wouldn't be in GME right now. See what I mean? So, because again, if I had the conviction that I had on Bitcoin, the same thing would have happened. Heck, I could still buy Bitcoin right now and hold it for 10 years. And I'm sure we're going to have, I hate to say I'm sure, but I feel like Bitcoin would have a better, return in 10 years in terms of like, if you hold GME for 10 years versus holding Bitcoin in 10 years, At this point in time, I feel like, Bitcoin has a more popular, approach to things, right? So that's why, like, the sentiment on Bitcoin is better than the sentiment on GME for sure. Now, of course, GME has its own leg too, right? It has its own rights to return in a short period of time. If you were to think about like people FOMOing into the stock, because of the short sellers and all that stuff, that dynamic is still there. But do you think it's going to return 10 years from now? It's going to stay in the price that it is? No, I don't think so. That spike will only happen in a blink of an eye, if it ever happened. Just like how it was in 2021. So my point is that, no matter what you do, I feel like it's your right to do that, right? And it's his right too to defend his viewer, which I respect. I really respect that about Marantz. So yeah, and also too, I think Tetron Invest has the right to sell his call if he wanted to. But the way that I listened to that particular live show on Tetron, he did explain that those are just a small portion of his portfolio, which that's along the line of what I do too. So if I'm gonna be on a chopping block, so be it. It is what it is. It's a difference of opinion for sure. It's a difference of income, risk tolerance, risk appetite, all of that. And yeah, people need to learn all of that. And so if option is going to create that knowledge that people are going to be like, okay, either you're going to make money or you're going to lose money, right? People are going to learn to either make money or lose money. And then whether they're going to learn it in the future not to do that or not, or maybe perhaps they're going to get better at it, right? So maybe they're going to be the same, as a caliber of Roy and Kitty, right? Because if you put your mind into it, of course you're going to learn everything that you need to about the stock market. Or you could do it a hybrid. That's along the line of what I do too. Is that, in this market, you have to be, at least willing to change your mind. Just like Ron Kitty as well. Like he said it. He reserved his right to change his mind. Right? So you cannot pigeonhole people into just one thing. And but hey, I respect them both. And I respect people who have strong opinion too. So that's what I'm, that's all I'm going to say about that. But anyway, so let's talk about this video here. So this is a video game that just released and it says what's in the box, right? So this is perhaps a jab at what is to come in the box, or to pay attention to what is Ron Kitty is tweeting. Tomorrow is his birthday, so who knows if he's going to tweet or not. That's, again, the growth of GME will not be dependent on Ron Kitty tweets, okay? Price action might react to that, but as far as like the fundamental of the company, nothing's going to change until they post a better revenue, a better earnings per share, which I think we're going to beat for sure. Just not sure about the revenue, but eventually we're gonna beat that revenue for sure. Only time will tell, you guys. Okay. All right. So let's talk about the option real quick. I'm looking at this here. Okay. So let's look about this one right here. Look about this one this here. What am I talking about? That makes no freaking sense. Okay, so this coming June, how many people are betting? Okay, pretty substantial. Usually, the options, weekly option does have a lot of interest associated with that. Max Payne is down right here, so don't be surprised if it's gonna close below that. Okay, so for next week, option chain is 29. So the Max Payne for sure is $1 above Max Payne for next week. Now, if Ron Kitty were to tweet, right, that Gamma Ram might happen, but again, that option will appreciate in price if you have one. And I think what Tetron was saying is that, you have to wait until the IB spike and then you sell into that run up. Okay, so that's the whole idea. But yeah, so here's another point too that I wanted to hone on this one, because it's kind of important. Now, if you can convince people, and I think this is the real reason why the price has been so spot on the Max Payne, is because they hope, who's they? market maker is hoping that enough people would write covered call in order to, sell the share into that, right? If they get convince enough people to write covered call, that's why I don't write covered call on all of my share. No, I have two contracts right now that are covered call, and that's the option, account that I have, that I play like for forever since, right? But I do have my Roth IRA that I don't touch. Okay, yes, I do have a portion in which I do trade too, but I don't have full option to do that with. No, Roth, they don't allow that. I'm glad that they don't, because I would be, tempted to do. But of course, I would not touch that at all, because I know this perhaps is their play game. Like, their game is that to try to entice people. And so if enough people write covered call, yeah, of course, they're going to be able to get the share at $30, $40, whatever the covered call is written. And so they're going to price hunting it on the way up. But that's going to send the price up anyway, right? And so that's going to entice people who are, day trader, who's happy to sell at $40 a share, I know somebody who holds GME right now that I'm close with, that would be happy to sell it at 40, 50, 60, right? And so again, to each is his own. This is the market that we're talking about. People are going to have their own beliefs, their own, price target, their own way of doing things. So you cannot control that. The only way that you could control is your own portfolio. My small amount of shares is not going to, cause the price to go up and down. Not at all, right? It's a collective that we're talking about. And so that's why it's so hard, for people to understand the whole, and even then, like, they've been selling the shares so many times over against me speculating. See, I have to say that because I don't know. Perhaps there are people who sell into these things. You see what I mean? Like, when people are saying, like, nobody's selling, like, do I really know that? Of course not. Yes, you could look at the OBV and then kind of speculating, yes, the price doesn't, the OBV doesn't come down, and speculate that that's the reason why nobody is selling. You could say that, but the actual amount of shares that are out there, if that's true, then it's enormously, like, over the float so many times, multiples. Right? In that case, a couple share here and there is not going to cause any harm to the price action, for sure. Yes, they could manipulate it based on the low volume, but when the high volume is coming, they cannot manipulate it too much. Yes, they could still manipulate it, though. I'm not saying they can't, but it has to be very overwhelming to them, right? You've seen it happen, you guys. Come on, like, look at this off exchange, right? I bet you anything, if Roaring Kitty were to come back, this off exchange is going to be 70%, 80%, 40, whatever, even 90%, right? Egregiously off exchange. And so even with the volume, they could still control it. So again, my whole point is that retail, Tetron, Marantz are not the one who moves the market. And so I'm not moving the market. I'm telling you. So even if I tell you, okay, go out there and sell covered call today, tomorrow, or Monday, or whatever, you think it's going to move the market? No. Look at my subscriber. How many people can I convince? Come on, it's ridiculous to say Tetron's going to convince people to do something. And but again, the only person or the only entity that could move this price is market maker. And how many people are actually interested in buying and holding, buying and holding, institutional level too. Okay, so that's why this institutional level of ownership is very important to look into, because I'm of the belief that until you see institutional ownership over 50%, okay, then you're not gonna see any price movement whatsoever, right? To the upside. I mean, when I said not any, I meant like that spike. Okay. Let me see here. Where did it go? I think this is the one. Okay, longs, shorts. Am I by line? No, that's insider. See, even this one is kind of misleading, right? Look at this. Insider ownership is only 1%, less than 1%. That's not true. We know that, right? Even, I mean, just Ryan Cohen alone, Ryan Cohen alone has more than 4 million shares. So how can the insider ownership is only 0.5%? It's ridiculous. So a lot of algorithm or people who doesn't know anything about this company look at it as at a glance, and they're like, look, insider ownership is only less than 1%. That's a red flag. I'm not going to touch it. Right? So again, this might be the decision that's why none of these institutions wants to touch GameStop. Okay? Now I know these people are not stupid. Of course, they could look up that information. They probably have a better information than this, right? But some retail might not know this, and then they use this type of, what is it called? This type of website, and they thought it is correct, right? And then they're like, they make decision based on that. So some retail, that's why they're still leaving this information, even though it's kind of misleading, out there for people to see. And so how can you combat that? You cannot. The only way that you could combat that is to give true information about the company as much as you can. But even then, you could still, I mean, it's still hard to convince people. Come on. Think about this. Okay, it takes Bitcoiners to convince people for the last 20 years. A little bit less than 20 years actually. To make Bitcoin the way that it is, right? But even then, institutions are the one who understand it more than retail. Retail hasn't touched it yet. I know, it's crazy. So if institutions are owning, quote unquote, 95%, and 5% is still, up for grabs here, then the rest of the retail hasn't touched it yet. That's why it's so early. That's why $100,000, it's not at all expensive. But again, to me, it's a function of how many people will agree with you at that moment in time. So that's why volume is so important when it comes to price action. It's much more important than the actual movement itself, So it's just that with GME, right, it's easily manipulated, can be manipulated by a market maker. It's because perhaps nobody pay attention to it, right? So as a long-term investor, this is exactly the time in which you want to buy. Because when people are not paying attention to it, guess what? That's your opportunity. Your opportunity is down here when people are scared, are run to the hill, thinking that, oh my goodness, even with this good earning, it doesn't help GameStop at all. Okay, the same thing. even with this Bitcoin announcement, it doesn't help GME to appreciate in price, right? So people have been kind of speculating on that, or they're just faking people out. Like I said, there's a lot of people betting on call options. Do you really think that the market maker is going to make you rich by owning call? Right? So that's why call has been, like, call option seller usually win out a lot more. Sorry. That's why seller usually wins. And who sells those call the most? Market makers. Right? So it's skewed. I'm telling you, you guys, it's skewed to the call option seller. So I don't blame Tetron, selling one call option here just to capture $60 worth of profit. And the reason why he doesn't mind getting assigned, and yes, he's gonna get assigned, is because he has what, I don't know how many shares he got, but he has a long-term portfolio that he doesn't care about touching, right? And so if the price goes up in value, he'll capture that, that hundreds of thousands of dollars that people are predicting. Then he'll be set for life. Same way for me. Like if Jimmy were to go to $1,000, I'll be set. I'll be okay. Even though I have 2 call options that I sold. At right now, what did I sell it at? Actually lower than Tetron, a long-term one too. But I used the proceed, so my break even is $33. Break even. So that's my long-term calls, and if it comes down for whatever reason, market crash, market events, black swan events, or whatever, right? Let's say, the U.S. Treasury yield, which it happened, where it went up in yield when Trump is trying to lower it, right here. So yesterday it went down again, meaning the value of the bond has diminishing, which means that the rate is going higher. So what does that mean? Could cause a market crash, right? Now, if the S&P were to go down in value, what do you think is going to happen to GME? You think GME is going to still? Yeah. It's going to be affected. And so, the downside protection is there. Will I sell my shares? Of course not. Why would I sell? Because I know, the value of the company is much better than the price action. That's why I don't, I don't mind if it comes down or up. If it comes down, great. My 2 call options gonna make me some, or at least have give me the opportunity to buy at a lower price, and hopefully, get to ride it back up. But again, two call options. That's all I have. I have 2 call options in terms of buys, and then I have 2 call options in terms of sell. So, like I said, it's the learning experience that I get to, I guess, experiencing it by experiencing it. Through experience, I learn more than just reading about it. Okay? Because you could read all the books that you want, but if you don't have a real life experience, to implement, then you don't really learn it. You don't really take it to heart. Why do you think I learned to have a long-term portfolio? Because I was a day trader before. Because I know it doesn't work, right? Purely as a day trader, it doesn't work. Now, also too, I have held GME for 3 years. Well, close to 4 now, I think. But I also learned that, hey, just buying and holding doesn't really offer much unless have the job to go to, which I do have a job to go to, and have multiple way of generating income. So that's why option is so enticing to me, because eventually I would like to learn how to create that income too, right? So yeah, I mean, again, that yield is important for you to retire in your earlier in your older age, right? Now, if you like Morantz, obviously, if he liked to go to work, yes, great, have him go to work, right? If he's 80 years old and he wants to still working, okay, go ahead, have him work. But I don't want to be 80 and then working, right? And so, and even if you have millions of dollars in the portfolio, right? You're already 80, so you can't, expect, like, yes, you could just use that, portfolio and then live off of that, and hope that, you get enough to cover whatever expenses that you have at 80 years old. But for me, learning about options and learning or knowing as much as I can about the way to generate income based on the money that you have is important. That's why I learned about yield, the US Treasury bond, or even bonds that MicroStrategy is put forth right now. It's pretty enticing, right? Something new, something to at least to learn about. Has nothing. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Right? Now, again, with GME, right? It's such a touchy topic for sure, and I understand the I guess not the elitist nature of things, the purest form of investing. It exists everywhere. It exists in Bitcoiners too. Right? Bitcoin people would like to tell you, like, yeah, of course, Bitcoin is better than GME. Like, why would you buy GME? Bitcoin is the best form of asset. It returns much better, right? This year alone, like if you were to Google it and say about Bitcoin, right? How much is it return for a year? Let's just ask rocks here real quick, because I think Bitcoin's gonna do much better in 30 years, right? And again, that's making the assumption. So how much does Bitcoin return for a year? Well, I should say for every year. Return every year since creation. It's creation. Okay, let's see what it say. It's thinking right now. Okay. Return based on, okay, let's look at this. All right. So on average, annual return for from 11 to 21 is 200%, 230%. From 24 to 23 it's over, say 50%. So volatility, da, da, da. So I would say on average is more than 50% since then, right? So again, new asset class, diminishing return, right? The bigger the market cap, the harder for Bitcoin to move in price. But again, if it competes with gold, right? Just like Ryan Cohen is saying, if you compete with gold, then you have 10x from here. Okay? If it reaches the capitalization of gold. Now the capitalization of gold will increase as well as money printing is turning back on. So my point here is that there's a lot of elitists out there who will pick asset class and then they go with it. Don't get me wrong. No matter what you buy, obviously, right? If you buy into GME, you are diversified into Bitcoin already. So you already exposed to Bitcoin. So yes, you're gonna return, at least similar to the movement of Bitcoin here. Not much, but if you have pure Bitcoin, right, obviously, you might have a better return than just GameStop. Now, GameStop has its own risk associated with that by way of just, opening up for business. Because, people could make mistake, Ryan Cohen could make mistake, or even not through Ryan Cohen, you could still, have the risk of, physical expenses, right? Like, the items in which you sell perhaps is going to, have some defects, or people, could ruin the reputation of GameStop by trying to, undermine everything. Yeah, look at the people that are going there, right? Complaining about staple, right? And again, like people can boycott it, or whatever. And so that's the risk that Bitcoin doesn't have, right? In terms of management. That's why not having CEO is actually a plus for Bitcoin. And for some people, they might think the opposite, right? The opposite of elitist. They would not touch it. They would not touch GME at all. They would not touch Bitcoin at all. Simply because of these type of things, right? Like I said, again, you have to convince enough people to get that price spike again. Okay. Now, whether they need the convincing, okay, whether they need the convincing, or they're just naturally going to get into it themselves. And it will happen. I'm telling you, it will happen one day, and you won't be ready for it. Okay? And typically, again, the institutional ownership means a lot more than people realize. Okay? Because with these institutional ownership increasing, it's going to put GME on the map more and more for institutional ownership to own it. Okay? The fact that they have Bitcoin now, it's going to put retailer on the map as well. Other retailers that have not considered buying Bitcoin or buying GME before, they're going to buy GME because now they have Bitcoin. Right? So, again, like that's going to happen naturally. You don't have to force it. Nobody's going to be able to move the price except the natural, supply and demand that overwhelms, the control of market maker. Okay, that's why volume you cannot typically control too much. And so if the volume is so overwhelming to trade like 1 billion share trading back and forth, instead of just 10 million shares, 2 million, 3 million, 15 million, right? Even then, it's easily controllable. So you need at least 100 million, 200 million shares trading back and forth to see that price action again. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how else to put this except that to encourage people to do whatever they feel like. Like, it's okay. It's okay not to hold. If you want to sell, it doesn't affect me. I don't think it affects the company either. I don't think it affects the share either. Think about this, right? And so for every seller, there's a buyer at the end of it. And so if you're able, like if you're, able to accumulate as much as you can at a lower price, and you are the diamond handlers, people just don't let go. Once they have it, they just leave it and they just pluck it away. Yeah. The more of those people who have the shares, okay, locked away without selling call on it, the better, right, for them before the price going up in value, right? So that's the name of the game, is to accumulate as much as you can before the price going up like crazy. The same thing with Bitcoin, right? When people are complaining, why Bitcoin is still at this price? Oh, it's gonna come down. Oh, if you don't sell now, you're never gonna be able to sell it at this price. Fear mongering, right? And so typically that's what happens. When people are fearful, the other person's gonna have to be brave if you want to make the money, right? So. And sometimes you get burned. The brave people get burns the most because they're most likely to develop that skill to know, okay, when should I run and when should I run the opposite. So but anyway, so sorry, I'm babbling too much today, but I just feel like I need to address that whole thing. But I know, I'll be on the chopping block next if that's the case. But I still respect them, though. Don't get me wrong. The guys deserve all the credit in the world about Jimmy, and he covers it, pretty extensively. And I'm thankful to come to that information for sure. No ifs or buts about it. And so yeah, that's it. So much respect. Okay, so let's talk about this real quick because I think with switch gear to Bitcoin here. I know Bitcoin is top of mind for sure when it comes to my head. It's hard to not talk about Bitcoin when Jimmy already have Bitcoin here. Now, Jeff Booth. Okay, he I've shown his video before, but he explained Bitcoin in a easily understandable, simple way for me to understand. And I hope this video kind of give you a snippet of what it means.
Well, thanks.
Bitcoin. So let's listen in. I will be right back.
For coming. I've been enjoying our conversations so much. Every single time, you absolutely blow my mind. I think what I've been going through recently and just kind of like my Bitcoin journey is the idea of inflation and how much it's like ruined society. And I guess my first question to you is what a lot of people look up on YouTube is how much Bitcoin do you truly need to retire?
I don't think very much. It depends on how long you can hold it, but I think it's, and I don't want this to be clickbaity, so please don't put this in the title, but I think it'll have infinite purchasing power eventually. And I can walk through why if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Okay. So if you said the current all assets in the world currently equal about $900 trillion. Underneath those assets is about $600 trillion of debt. If you include all of the liabilities and unfunded liabilities, but 600 trillion. And so if that debt went insolvent, all of those assets are worthless, right? Because everything would collapse. So people are measuring their assets within a system that debt is already insolvent, and they're pretending that debt is solvent. That debt requires more and more manipulation of money forever, exponentially more manipulation of money, so that the assets don't collapse and everything within that system doesn't collapse. So we're at the almost end of days. It could go on a bunch longer, but that system is getting more and more centralized, more and more controlled, and because it has to. We'll go into that afterwards. But every single asset, so instead of thinking 900 trillion of assets, think my house within that, this building within that. Well, if that debt went insolvent, this place would be worth nothing, like nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So there would be complete chaos. And so what does that say to you? It says it won't go insolvent in that way, because you wouldn't let it. If a government allowed the debt to completely collapse and everything to collapse and it to be anarchy in that way, every last man for himself, you would, before that happened, vote for more centralization and control. You wouldn't let the bank fail. So when I say it's going to collapse to zero, it won't collapse to zero. And instead, there will be liquidation, more and more manipulation of money. So from Bitcoin's perspective, if you just said, you have an open, decentralized, secure protocol bounded by energy. And that's my kind of 5 criteria on what this is. So that system bounded by energy, as long as it stays decentralized and secure, the only thing that would change this is if somehow Bitcoin broke and wasn't decentralized and secure. But that system bounded by energy will reprice all $900 trillion of assets. All. It's not, Bitcoin isn't within the system, it's outside the system, bounded by energy. There's a really important differentiation. You know this, many Bitcoiners know this, but many Bitcoiners know it, and at the same time, they're pricing it as an asset within the system. Okay, so it's outside. If you hold it in self-custody, if it stays decentralized and secure, bounded by energy, it is repricing that entire system over time. So what does that mean? So you take that 900 trillion today of purchasing power, not 900 trillion of paper money, of purchasing power, and you divide it by 21 million. Or if you said that how many lost coins, you divide it by a smaller number. But let's say that number equals 43 million, approximately 43 million of purchasing power in today's currency of Bitcoin. But what would happen from that system? From that system, you're living in the first global free market that has ever existed. And from that system, prices fall every year, prices as we automate, as AI moves faster and faster, as AI merges with robotics, as the free market adds more people to the free market and those ideas compete to provide us value, prices fall forever relative to that 43 million. So that 43 million gains more and more value forever. So if you had a small percentage of a Bitcoin in time, that would be enough to live forever. And it's just, all we're talking about is the timing of when that happens rather than does that happen. So
I think, and
Right. I mean, it could take another 40 years before that happened, right? But by 40 years, what do you think the money printer gonna happen? Like 40 years, that's what, how many elections? 10 elections, right? 10 president or 5, right? Depends on how many terms that they are able to. So within this just past, what, 12 years? The debt has been double, triple, quadruple, right? Than it has been before. So I remember listening to Obama when he was running. We were at $9 trillion back then, okay? And that was just 2 presidents ago. Come on, you guys, like, understand that these money will keep going up. Money meaning just fiats. Right? So the value of the dollar measuring against the Bitcoin will only be 1 Bitcoin. And so if there's more money chasing that 1 Bitcoin, of course, $40 million a coin will happen eventually. It's inevitable, right? And just like he's saying, it's like the reason why the US cannot pay the debt is because somebody else debt or somebody else asset would be collapsing. You cannot. So the only way that you could do it is to print. Right? So every government is doing the same thing because they borrow, like Japan. What are they doing right now? Their rate, even though they're trying to get it down, the markets say no. Give me more rate. Give me more yield because I don't think you're not going to be able to pay it back. Right? So what do? They print money to buy their own bond. That's what we're doing right now. We have $10 trillion, you guys. Okay, think about it. That's $10 billion just bought back by the US Treasury. There was a gentleman in which, so with that money printer going crazy, you're gonna see asset price going higher. So let me see if I could find it. I think this is the one.
So much to talk about in this video, but I will start by saying that the opportunity that you, right there, watching this video, that you and I have is incredible.
Okay, so
this isn't a check it out if you're interested, but let's dive into the charts. And I want to start, this is very important. If you want to cruise around, hit the timestamps if you want to go just check out Ethereum, Bitcoin aspect of the video, but this is very important.
Right. Just like the most important thing, and then there you go.
Here's where we are. This isn't just a macro cycles of crypto thing. This is a macro cycles of everything thing. Let me explain. Right now, and I should actually set the tone with this post that I just saw. US Treasury bought a record $10 billion of its own debt.
So they're printing money to buy into the Treasury bond to buy their own debt. That's inflationary, you guys. Okay? And this big, beautiful bill is going to be inflationary too. Why do you think everything keeps going up in price? Without anything. Like, why do you think the Magnificent 7 goes up in price? And why Magnificent 7? It's because those are the only magnificent company that makes money, right? In their or at least meaningful amount of money in order to justify that valuation. And so with that, right, comes people come money just rushing to buy into it, even though it doesn't justify the valuation. People still buy into it because what else are they going to buy? Okay, if they don't believe in Bitcoin, right? Like I said, 95% of people on Earth don't have Bitcoin, don't even know what Bitcoin is, or don't even want to touch it, right? So inevitably, those 95% is going to become 80% sometime, right? 80%, 70%, right? So, and then on top of that, as the year goes on, you have this type of things going on. So it's accelerating. Is it going to be parabolic? It's already been parabolic, right? We went from $9 trillion from Obama to now, what, 36, 37, maybe 38 now, $1 trillion. So is that sustainable?
Printing money. This is the beginning of it. And I want to show you something. I had it marked on this chart, actually. You see right here, I said, Fed started buying treasury bills right here. This was coming out of that tariff panic of 2008.
And yes, so the Fed used to print money to buy treasury yield too. So they've been doing this for a long time.
18. Remember, we just had a very similar thing happen, right? But notice what else was happening. There was Fed policy reassurance. There was the end of QT on the horizon, right? As we're coming out of that high fear environment. This is right where we are right now, a tariff capitulation and very similar things. This green line I have here is kind of like the slowing down of quantitative tightening. This top back here, the beginning of even the last crypto bull market and going into the crypto bull market was quantitative easing ending and getting ready to go into multi-year quantitative tightening. So I'm trying to paint the picture as we start continuing into the analysis aspect of these charts. And I want to actually mention before we start looking at Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano, I want to mention, notice we came out of the capitulation and you can just see just kind of the higher low at the moving averages on the weekly was a very important back here in 2019, even coming out of the March 2020 swing low, important to test these moving averages. If we go look at the chart now, you can kind of see these moving averages are they're squeezing together, but we might test that, right? So even on the short term, we could have sideways, we could have consolidation, but I think there are very big things coming. And I think this is a very little hint of that. US Treasury buying $10 billion of its own debt. And so we have it, we are waiting. And maybe some of you are tired of me going over this and looking at this chart, but this is what I'm continually reminding myself of as I make my own macro decisions. This is the Fed balance sheet, and we are waiting for this to start expanding. If we go to Bitcoin, I want to talk about this post. I just saw Kevin earlier, and he had another post the other day we were kind of doing some analysis off of, and we're actually going to look at that on the daily. But he said, I don't think people realize that Bitcoin just completed its most significant retest of 100,000 and held it. It's the first time we've dropped 10% into the $100,000 zone and immediately turned it into new support. Major bullish signal. $100,000 is the new floor. So if we go look at this chart, this is the daily.
But anyway, so people who are speculating on the technical analysis, again, it could fail, right? Those support could fail, and the floor might not be 100,000, but it's pretty close. Even if the floor turned into 80,000, it's still early for sure, right? Let's see. What else? So with that, I feel like that's all I have, you guys. I know it's kind of nighttime right now. I'm kind of feeling sleepy, but I feel like I have one more video here just to drive home real quick with the Bitcoin stuff. I really think it's important just to get hyped, maybe. Let's see if I could find it. I watched. Oh yeah, this gentleman here.
So fast that
you don't have any room to think about.
I mean, guys, I'm about to cash a check for $180,000.
Okay. So let me try to set this up real quick. So he is a okay. Let's see.
So it's just sort of like the nature of.
Okay, so this gentleman here, he apparently wrote a book about fiat currency, ruin everything, right? Because of inflations and all that stuff. So, and he's a Bitcoin maximalist, in his own right? Because they might be right. Who knows?
The thing that we're talking about.
That's I love that explanation. It makes tons of sense. Where do you fall in this balance between, Bitcoin, the toxic maximalism and empathy? And I phrase like that because you get a lot of, going back to the Saylor thing of, it's a human system at the end of the day. So if humans don't adopt it, we can, there's this nuance you have to ride between toxicity and saying, no, this is the way it is. This is the way it has to be. And at the same time, trying to draw in the masses, whether it's converting the king and it's some sovereign or it's a nation, nation state or whatever it is. And just, your mom down, or whatever, or their neighbor next door. You can turn people off if you're using that toxicity and weaponizing it and just beating everyone over the head with it. But also if you're being too lax and saying, oh, whatever goes, then yeah, like you said earlier, you got to stay on top of these things, because if you just kind of let it devolve into whatever, then that'll be the case. It'll just turn into whatever. So where do you kind of draw that line between, hey, I'm strong and ardent and I'm toxic over here, but then I'm empathetic over here? Because this is a debate I've had with many Bitcoiners. I talk with Aladdin a lot at Bitcoin trading cards. We're always kind of going along this line of, with the cards themselves, you're trying to reach normies. I mean, we're in the Pokemon crowds, like it's starting to really grow in those areas. And a lot of people, they're like, who's the Bitcoin CEO? Like, these people have no idea what's going on. But if you come across and they're like, hey, we're going to beat you over the head with toxicity, this is the only way anything can ever be done in life, then people look at you and are like, oh, okay. And you've seen this throughout the years, right? So how do you balance that, I guess, is maybe is the only way I can ask that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm generally toxic towards altcoiners, but I'm like, there's like, it's very hard to convert altcoiners, right? Because they in their heart of hearts, I think they really want to just like gamble, and I don't know how you get
people like the casino.
You need like Gamblers Anonymous exists for a reason, right? Like you need like intervention 100%. To get people out of gambling. Your conversation with them is not going to convert them. So
some people like losing too, like literally, like that's why a lot of people go to the casino. It's like a stated thing, or whatever. Like they've researched it. Like some people are just addicted to that rush of like losing,
which is so strange. But that's what people are like. So with new people, I try to explain it, and very gentle, trying to explain what it is, and if they ask about altcoins, I'll explain what the difference is and so on. But the people that I'm toxic to generally already have an idea of what they want to do, and they're just being kind of purposefully ignorant about the facts. So they I'm generally toxic to those people, especially the ones that are hyper aggressive online and I actually don't even engage with those people anymore, and haven't for many years. But I think just sort of saying what's true is normal and fine. And the thing is, like, the thing that Bitcoiners have going for them is that they've just been right, right? like people said in 2017, Ethereum is going to be this world computer. It's like, no, it's not. And then you like, okay, cutscene. 6 years later, it's like, yeah, you were right. Okay. Like the truth tends to win out. So as long as you just like can show the receipts of having been right, like people, I think eventually come around, or they can just keep losing money. I mean, some people, like their pride is such that they're never going to be, humbling themselves to come back to you, but that's okay. Like they'll learn their lesson some other time, or maybe they can't learn it. It would be nice if we had like Gamblers Anonymous like interventions for some of these people, and maybe got them to like just stop gambling altogether. Maybe even like don't do anything with Bitcoin. Just like get your life back together. But you know, for Bitcoin specifically, I think it's important to you know, push back against lies and to tell it like it is. Unfortunately, a lot of like altcoiners, like they kind of weaponize the fact that most people are nice as a way to sort of like slip under the radar and get you to say good things about them. And that's, I think, where a lot of the toxicity comes from, is you want to prevent that, because they're like, oh, and I agree, I love Bitcoin, blah blah blah, right? And it's like, okay, but that, like, liking Bitcoin doesn't mean that you're allowed to go get away with all these other scams and stuff. So that's where I think a lot of the toxicity in this community comes from, is because of that, like lumping together under the moniker of crypto. Hey, Bitcoin, oh, we're on the same side. Oh, you're into crypto, right? Like, it's
So again, toxicity is everywhere, right? So of course, Bitcoiners have their own, you know, I guess maximalism of thing, and they only buy Bitcoin for whatever reason, right? To me, you know, just to say that all crypto are scam is wrong either, besides Bitcoin. That's wrong, because there are, you know, tokens out there that have useful, you know, I guess utility besides Bitcoin. So yes, Bitcoin's gonna be in a store value stage, and then the other one is utility. Again, just me speculating here, like not right or wrong or anything like that, just a speculation at this point in time. So with XRP, I'm tracking its usability right now, where also too XLM seems to have some traction as well, because Circle has been you know, IPO'd, so at least it's becoming more legitimized in that sense. Why XLM? Because XLM is related to Circle. I guess they partnered up with Circle years ago, before the IPO. And in the video that I show you about the Circle IPO the other day, they did mention about, you know, XRP being their partnership too. So things is coming, and I'm sure, you know, these type of tokens is going to be playing an important role in the financial system in some way, shape, or form. It's only time will tell, right? Which one is going to win out? But yes, Bitcoin's going to win, of course. I just so happen to disagree with Bitcoiners at this junction. I'm betting on the altcoins going higher in percentage. But don't get me wrong, I will eventually go to Bitcoin, obviously. If I want to store my wealth, obviously. If I have like hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Of course, yeah. I'll buy 10 Bitcoin. You know, depends on how much it is. We'll see if it is the case. If I'm right, obviously, you know, I'm looking to get at least, you know, 20%. I mean, 20%, sorry. 20x the earnings. I mean, 20x the original position that I built for the other one. Let's see. Now, if GME is still at this price, obviously, yes, I'm gonna scoop a whole bunch of GME from my crypto. even more. But yeah, so long as they are able to manipulate the option chain and the volume off exchange, price is not going to budge. Okay, so rule needs to change. All of that needs to change, or the influx of people overwhelming the market maker in order to buy into this company. So need popularity for sure. So And the only way to get that popularity is from earnings, right? So that's why Ryan Cohen is working so hard to get that earnings going, balance sheets going. So yeah, that compound interest is going to happen with GME balance sheets here. Okay, so instead of 100 million next year, we're going to be 200 million. So that's going to creep up to 300 million pretty soon. Right. All right, you guys. I have been babbling for quite some time, too long. Okay, hopefully I make sense in this. Like, I hate confrontation, you guys. Like, I don't want to talk about other people talking about other people, but you know, it's kind of important point to at least just address. So there you go. I am going to sign out. Thank you so much for tuning in.